You may notice I'm a little bit discolored today. I got some red in my face. I got tan lines all over the place. I've been in the sun for, oh gosh, it seems like forever now, but it's been at least a week that I've been working out at my new property. We moved house and it's been crazy, guys. I'm still actually without power. Well, how am I recording this, you ask? Well, I'm in my studio. I'm just plugged up to a generator. Maybe if you listen faintly, you can hear it. I got a pretty quiet one. It's out back right now, but I got extension cords. But the house is still upside down. We're piecing it together. We've been having some very, very hot weather, which is why I'm kind of discolored. But today, it's cool. A cool front came in due to the storms in the tropics and stuff like that. And while it may be horrible for some people, it's a blessing for us. So I'm using this to be in my office right now without an air conditioner or fan or anything, just to record a video for you guys because I'm at the end of my backlog as of today. So I need to put out a video for the next few days just to make sure that you guys have one. I know I took a break a while back and I don't want you guys to have to wait for videos any longer than you already do. And we'll be probably increasing the frequency of uploads once my life gets back to normal. But if there's any inconsistency over the next few days, I apologize, you guys. I'm doing my best here. But at any rate, guys, this one's SCP-1102, the Blue Ridge Phenomenon. It's by Dr. Bob. Make sure to subscribe to him. Subscribe to me if you like reaction videos. And let's get into this one.
The rain patters incessantly against the hiker's hood.
That looks nice and cool.
The sound that has been accompanying her for the last 4 hours of walking through the Blue Ridge Mountains.
I hate walking
Just that
water,
noise
man.
and the squelch of her shoes as they tread their way up the gravel path. It doesn't help that it's now almost pitch black. Come to Blue Ridge. You'll love it here.
Too.
We can go out together. Yeah, right. Her friend had bailed on her at the last minute, taking half of their equipment with her so the hiker had to buy herself a whole new tent and sleeping bag that morning.
Wow, that's...
Now, as she trudges her way up yet another trail in the pouring rain,
Why'd she do that?
she seriously wonders if it was worth the trip out to Virginia.
Did
She
she
is so
fail,
absorbed
or
by
did
the
she
rain
get-
and the darkness that she fails to see the man walking towards her until the last second. He isn't coming along the path, not at all. Instead, he is marching straight up the ridge on her right, making a beeline for her. He's dressed in ragged waterproof clothes that catch and tear on the bushes as he pushes his way through them. He closes the gap to her startlingly fast, so quickly in fact, that she has to jump back out of his way to stop him from walking right into her. She catches her heel on a rock and loses her balance, landing squarely on her tailbone. A dull ache shoots up her torso, enough to wind her. But as she gasps for air, the man just walks right on past. He crosses the path and strides up the embankment to the left, disappearing into the woods without so much as a glance back at her.
Weird, dude.
By the time she's got the air in her lungs to call out at him indignantly, he's long gone.
What?
Her breath doesn't fully come back.
I don't know if I'd be
Some part of
harassing
her feels
people
rattled.
like
As
that.
she gets up, feeling that familiar squelch in her boots, and continues along the trail, she can't quite settle her lungs into their normal pattern.
Uh-oh.
She walks another mile or so, but the anxiety doesn't go away. That settles it. She won't camp on her own tonight. There's a hostel just up the ridge that she can go to. It might be quiet because of the weather, but there will at least be some company there. The last thing she wants is to be a woman camping alone with a strange man marching around the woods like that.
That's right.
Safety in numbers.
Correct.
And numbers there are. As she approaches the hostel, she spots a small gang of tents surrounding it. There's a little canopy outside with an open fire underneath. Rain-bedraggled campers huddle around the flames like a group of waterlogged moths. Their brightly colored raincoats are draped heavily over their shoulders,
They all
lit up
look-
eerily by the orange glow.
Look at old boy's
The
eyes.
nearest
He's
guy,
like...
in a blue coat, waves her over and explains that the hostel is already full. Apparently, hikers have been flocking to the building all day to escape the rain. Some of them are too exhausted and wet to say a word, just heading straight inside and sitting in a bunk. They're packed in there
terrible
like
feeling,
sardines,
man.
apparently. Definitely a fire hazard. The smell in there, he explains, is unbelievable.
Oh.
She probably dodged a bullet being late and having to camp outside.
Wow.
A girl from the group gets up and shows the hiker to a good spot, raised slightly above the puddles that threaten to turn the grass into a
I don't know if
swamp.
that's bad or
The hiker
good.
thanks her and starts to set up her new tent. It goes terribly. She's never set up one like it before. Whoever designed it had clearly never gone camping in the rain. The inner has to go up first before she puts the outer rain cover over it, so right away, her room for the night has been drenched in rainwater.
Oh,
Perfect.
no.
She throws her bag inside and
That
hurries
stinks.
back over to the fire, eager to get out of the rain for a bit. There's
At least
quite a
it'll
crowd
cover
gathered
you,
around
though.
the fire. They mostly just sit in silence, only a handful of campers keeping the conversation going. Many of the strangers don't say a word at all, just sit there staring into the flames.
That's creepy, man.
The hiker does the same for the longest
People that
time,
don't talk,
just enjoying the feeling of
when
having
there's
her
awkward
hood down,
silence.
some warmth at her wrinkled fingertips, and a bit of human company around her.
Awkward silence, I
After
should
what
say.
feels like
It's
an
not
hour,
comfortable.
the guy in the blue coat asks if anyone wants to hear a ghost story.
Oh boy, here
Immediately,
we go.
4 different people start yelling at him to stop being such a cliche. They're grown adults. Surely they can have a normal conversation around a campfire at night without having to reach for such low-hanging fruit. They can't. A woman starts things off. She talks about a boy from her school who'd gone missing up in these mountains years ago.
Boy.
On the night of his junior prom, he'd skidded off the road and down a ravine. No one ever found the body.
Was
Then,
he drinking a
as
little
if by
bit?
magic,
That's what
he
happened.
appeared at
on
his
senior
girlfriend's
prom.
house on the
Oh!
following year's prom night, dressed in the same clothes he'd gone missing in.
You look like you
When
need
her
some
parents
sleep, my
came to
boy.
wake her up in the morning, he had mysteriously vanished.
Of course.
No one finds it particularly scary. Someone else jumps in with a story of his own. Similar theme, really. A cousin had a friend who knew someone who owned a kayak that
Oh,
he capsized on
cousin
some
had a
rapids.
friend who knew
10 years
someone.
later, he turned up at a campsite in the middle of the night, and so on and so on.
Another sleep.
Safe to say, none of the ghost stories are any good.
Right.
The hiker stops listening, staring into the flames and letting her mind drift. She can't help but let her mind drift back to the man from earlier. The hiker shudders involuntarily.
That was
One of the campers around the
kinda
fire
scary.
asks if she's okay. She tells them it's just the rain. That man. Something had been seriously wrong with him. Dressed in tattered waterproof clothes, walking in such a straight line,
Was
totally
he a
ignoring
ghost?
her.
You
Not
should have
just
told that
ignoring her,
story,
but
girl.
Nearly walking through her. Should she tell someone? Maybe he's still somewhere out there. Maybe he's sick. She should say something. The hiker sits herself up straight and looks around the circle. She's just opening her mouth to speak when she freezes. There he is. The man.
Oh!
Sitting 2 places to her left. How had she missed him? Rain drips from his hood and
Creepy.
runs down his sleeves. He isn't looking at her. He isn't looking at anything. Just staring straight ahead at something beyond the fire.
Awkward silence.
Is everything okay? The guy in the blue coat asks, noticing the hiker's discomfort. She gathers herself and tells him everything is fine, but the interruption is enough to kill the conversation. An uneasy atmosphere settles over the campfire. No one knows quite what to say. The only sounds are the crackle of the campfire and her breathing. She can hear it speeding up again, her lungs falling out of rhythm,
That
out of
anxiety.
sync with her body, in sync with her growing panic. Is he following her? It's too much. The hiker excuses herself and gets up from the fire. She walks in the direction of her tent, but with every step, she finds her lungs falling further out of rhythm. Breathe in, breathe out. Simple as that.
She's
One breath in,
hyperventilating.
one breath out. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Is he behind her? Is he? She wheels around. No.
Is this an
No, he is
anomalous
still
effect?
sitting with the crowd
or is she
staring into
just
the fire, just like
tripping?
the lady next to him and the young kid next to her. In fact, half of the people sitting around the fire don't seem to be moving at all. In fact, none of those people looking into the fire have said a word all evening. Not a laugh, not a smile.
Weird.
And come to think of it, there must be 11 of them sitting around that fire, but there are only 5 tents set up out here. A figure emerges out of the darkness so suddenly, it makes her jump. He can't be more than a few feet away from her, but in the darkness, she would never have guessed he was there. This new stranger walks straight past her, over to the fire, and takes her empty spot. No introductions, no asking if that space
Quiet.
was taken.
Yeah.
He just sits down. Quietly she
Something's
can.
going
the hiker
on.
walks back over to the
It's a
group,
mystery.
careful to hang back just out of the flickering glow of the fire. She watches as the newcomer takes the exact same pose as the others sitting around the fire, blank expression,
This is
staring
gonna be
straight
so
ahead.
awkward for people.
The guy in the blue coat welcomes the new guest. No response.
Of course
he puts
not.
an arm around the stranger.
What?
Nothing.
Bro,
He
that's
asks
very
if he's
personal.
okay. Had a long day? Silence. The concern seems to register on the guy's face, and indeed on the faces of the others
Well,
sitting around the
yeah.
fire.
He's
Or rather,
trying to be warm
on
and
half
friendly,
of the
but
faces
that
of
is
those sitting around the
too
fire.
friendly,
The
dog.
other half just
Hey, bro.
carries on staring
That's
into the
what I'd
flames.
say.
The faces. There's something strange about their faces.
They
Their
look
skin
mad.
isn't just rain-soaked and cold. It looks slightly bloated, sallow,
Cadaverish?
like a thin layer of plastic wrapped too tightly around a piece of meat that had been forgotten about.
Waterlogged.
All of a sudden, the guy in the blue coat stands up sharply. "I'm going to bed," he announces in a
Yeah.
slightly choked voice. Then he runs, scrambling away from the fireside
You feel
and
it
out
too?
into the rain.
That anxiety?
The hiker catches up to him and grabs his arm. He wheels around and stares at her with wild eyes, looking her up and down, then pulls away, heading for the door to the hostel. From behind her, the hiker hears the others from around the fire all getting up to leave too, and this time it really is everyone. Even the strangers with their bloated skin. Everyone is getting up.
What the
She comes
heck?
back to Bluecoat and implores him to let her come and stay in the hostel for the night. She doesn't feel safe out here anymore. He just shakes his head at her, mouthing noiselessly. His eyes lock with something over her shoulder. She spins around to see the stranger, the newest one to join them at the fire. He's right behind her, inches from her face.
Dude, this is
Smell hits her.
creepy, man.
It isn't overwhelming, but it is there, sure enough.
Dead?
The smell of rotting meat, barely making it to her nostrils as if it was seeping through the
She's
gaps of the
undead.
closed
He's
dumpster.
undead.
The stranger
They're
does
undead.
not look at her, though. He raises a lazy arm and pushes her out of the way, eyes fixed on the door to the hostel. Bluecoat drops all pretense and starts running for the door. He reaches it, dives inside, and slams the door hard behind him. The stranger continues to walk to the door, all
What's
the way
he
to the
gonna do?
doorstep, then stops. Another of the strangers joins him. Then the
It's
stranger
like
with the tattered
zombies,
waterproofs. Then the others. 7 figures standing by the doorway, not knocking, shouting, or doing anything at all.
Just looking.
Waiting patiently, as if at any moment someone will come and let them in. The hiker stands motionless. She holds her breath.
What the heck,
Maybe they've
dude?
forgotten that she's here. She glances around back over to the fire. The others seem lost as to what to do. All of them
yeah?
are right on the verge of running, only there's nothing to run from. The strangers aren't doing anything.
They're not
They aren't
worried
even
about
looking
them.
at them. Just waiting by the door to the
They
hostel.
have their own thing.
The hiker, still holding her breath, creeps over to the group.
Yeah.
3 girls, including herself, and 2 guys. They all exchange silent looks of fear with one another. Maybe they're overreacting. Maybe these strangers don't
No,
speak English.
that is
Maybe they're just
awkward.
exhausted from the wet weather and
But they would
acting
say
strangely
something.
because they've become a little delirious. Maybe
They
it's all
did.
just one big prank. Maybe. For a long time, they stand like that, the 5 of them huddling near to the fire, the strangers waiting by the door to the hostel. No one speaking.
Are they
no
just
one
gonna
moving.
turn around,
The
baby?
fire sputters and shrinks the longer they stand there. The strangers remain totally still. Creepy? Yes.
Yes.
But nothing bad has happened. No one is being attacked.
Yet.
No one's in danger. Maybe they are overreacting after all. Tiredness sets in. It must be 2 a.m., maybe 3. Would it be crazy to just go to bed? The
I mean-
strangers, odd as they are not actually doing anything.
All you got is a
It's so
tent to
dark and
protect
so
you?
cold. Maybe if they just get into their tents and go to bed, everyone would be gone by the morning. So that's what they
maybe.
do, agreeing with their plan in hushed whispers. The hiker volunteers to go last. The others all get their things and disappear into their tents as she stands to watch. None of the 7 strangers by the door move. They just wait there patiently, expressionless, slightly bloated, waiting to be let inside. Finally, it is her time to go to bed. Quickly as she can, she unzips the door.
Something
and
fitting to
ducks
go off,
inside.
y'all. Something
The zip is
about
loud,
something about
much
to
louder
happen.
than she expected. Stupid new tent. So loud that as she closes it behind herself, she sees the stranger in the
Oh!
tattered coat turning to look at her through the closing gap. Then nothing. She's on her own. Finally,
Now you can't
she's
see
holding her
them,
breath
though.
again. And through what she thought were impenetrable canvas walls comes a sound, just audible over the pattering rain. Footsteps. A shadow falls over the tent. The zipper slowly drags its way open. The rainy wind blows in, carrying with it the stench of rotten meat. As the stranger crouches down and crawls into the
What are
tent.
you doing?
There isn't space in there for the both of them. He crawls virtually onto her lap, his face inches from hers, looking right at her, but not seeing
Dude,
her
get
at all.
off me.
Now she is breathing hard and fast, shallow breaths that rack her lungs and send her whole body into convulsions and heave that horrible smell into her nose. More footsteps. The whole tent lurches to the side as another one of the strangers crawls in,
What are they
stressing
doing
the canvas
to
out
her?
to the left. He puts a heavy, clammy palm directly onto her arm, absently pinning her down. Once he's in, just like the other stranger, he just stops and waits. The third one forces his way into the tent. The hiker is now lying flat on her back,
What are
half
they
pinned
gonna do?
down. There's nowhere left for her to go. There is physically no space left in the tent. There's no air to breathe. Nothing but these strangers.
She's gonna panic
Footsteps
herself
around
to
her,
death.
yelps from the other tents, zips opening,
Oh,
poles bending,
no.
then silence.
They're
Nothing
getting
but the
them
patter
all.
of rain as the 5 campers lie there, closed in by these 7 strangers. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, rotten meat.
Bro,
breathe
why
out.
aren't you fighting?
The hiker lies there totally still.
Fight,
as
girl,
panic attack
fight.
after panic attack racks her body as the strangers in her tent do nothing.
She's gonna pass out
Time
from the
warps
shock.
out of shape. She has no idea how long it has been, but every so often, a new set of footsteps will march themselves purposefully up to the entrance of her tent, and a new shadow will join those encircling her.
Oh my.
How many are there now? She can count them by the light of the fire. 9, 12. The counting gets
Oh
easier.
gosh.
Somehow the fire is growing steadily brighter, brighter and brighter,
Uh-oh.
until she can feel the warmth of it even from here. But no, it's too bright, too warm.
It's
That
on
can't just be
fire.
from that fire.
Something's on fire.
Besides, no one out there is feeding it. Then the screaming starts. Just a few muffled yells at first, rising to blood-curdling shrieks within seconds.
Oh
Within a
no!
minute, the sound of a roof collapsing. Sparks land on the tent. And sear little holes
Oh, the
into
hostel's on
material.
fire.
The hostel. It's burning. The hiker wants nothing more than to break out of the tent and run to help, but the strangers surround her, doing nothing, just pinning her
Are they
down,
protecting
motionless,
her?
stinking. She blinks. They're gone. The pressure on her arm isn't there anymore.
What?
The shadows on the fabric are gone. Just the light from the fire remains. That and the smell still wafting in the air.
What are they
The
trying
hiker
to
gasps
help?
for air and receives a lungful of smoke. She throws herself forward and out of the opening in her tent. It is too late. The hostel burns fiercely, just as the morning sun
Dang.
crests over the horizon, and the
Was
last
it
droplets of
lightning?
rain fall at her feet. That morning, the hiker found herself standing right in the middle of SCP-1102.
What in the world?
You see, this particular anomaly is not a creature at all, as you might have
Okay.
expected,
Yeah, I mean.
but rather a region. Within the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia, USA, is a geographical area known for a disarming but ultimately harmless supernatural occurrence,
This is
well,
wow, y'all.
mostly harmless.
But cool.
only occurring at night and during periods of rain or snow. A seemingly random area within the Blue Ridge Mountains will undergo a strange event.
Okay.
All of the corpses within that region will seemingly come back to life. This is no simple reanimation, however. The original bodies do not suddenly rise out of the ground. Instead, exact copies of those bodies appear. While these copies are close enough
They,
to the
like,
original
just
person to
manifest.
fool observers from a distance, they fail to be all that convincing upon closer inspection.
Right.
The skin is the biggest giveaway, looking somewhat deteriorated and different in color from the original person. The most obvious difference, however, is the behavior.
Yeah.
Corpses created during an SCP-1102 phenomenon lack full brain function. While studies have found flickers of activity occurring between the neurons, it is nowhere near enough to sustain intelligent thought.
Right.
These bodies find themselves driven by one simple and
They're just
very human
programmed.
desire. They want company. Any corpses, human or otherwise, will seek the nearest crowd of their own species and gather with them. Beyond this drive, little is known about their motivations. Once with the group, they do not feed, reproduce, seek dominance, or even offer any social interaction.
They
just
just
return to their nearest point of civilization, simply to be there.
Weird.
Until all of a sudden, they aren't there. When the sun rises after an SCP-1102 occurrence, every walking corpse simply disappears, along with the original corpse that it was copied from. Not a trace is left behind, unless, of course, you happen to get that smell trapped in your brand new tent.
Oh gosh.
And this brings us to what was most unfortunate about the incident up at the hostel in the Blue Ridge Mountains that our hiker bore witness to. The fire that started had nothing to do with SCP-1102.
It was just random.
All that happened was our friend in the blue coat felt so afraid of the strangers standing outside that he sat himself right up against one of the hearths inside, close enough for the edge of his coat to catch fire.
Oh no!
While the whole building did burn down,
He
rescue
didn't.
services only found 8 bodies inside.
You know
far
how
from
scared
the
you gotta
maximum
be not
capacity
to
the hostel
realize
offered,
that?
almost as if everyone else crowded inside that building had mysteriously vanished. Of course, keeping an SCP like this one away from the public eye is no small task. Containing
They
a
said there was
seemingly
a lot of
random
people.
geographic phenomenon is
So maybe it
virtually
was all of them.
impossible without sealing off the whole mountain range.
It said it
Instead,
stank too.
a group of dedicated agents has spent several years running an information operation instead, taking the truth of these events and dressing them up as cliched ghost stories, the kind you
is
tell around a campfire.
A neat urban
So next
legend
time you
to
sit
talk
across from
about.
someone toasting a marshmallow and telling you about a friend they once had, it might just be worth paying attention to. You never know who might be on their way to join you. If you want to support this
This
important
was
mission,
really good, man. I enjoyed this. When they said that early in the video, when they said that the hostel was really crowded, when old boy was saying like it's too crowded, imagine the stench. That was because that was all those dead people that were like going into the hostel for company. That's so weird. Cool urban legend though. Like that's a kind of story that you can tell around a campfire and really enjoy, man. I like this one. Guys, make sure to subscribe to Dr. Bob. Give me a like on the video if you enjoyed the reaction and subscribe to me as well. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.